must say, Gene, it's difficult to come up and speak behind an act like that. But anyway, I'm pleased to be here today, and I'm pleased to be able to share the I's have it with you. We all know that marriage can be very, very difficult. Approximately 50% of all the married couples in the United States end in divorce, which means that 1 out of every 2 has likely become so miserable that they give up. One thing's for sure, good marriages don't just happen. And most people don't marry planning to divorce. Although there's many, many, many aspects to building a successful marriage, today I wanted to share with you 3 I's for building a fulfilling, healthy, and happy marriage. So to share the first I with you today, I'm going to talk to you about integrity. Just like a building has a foundation, so every relationship does too. Particularly in marriage, integrity is a foundational piece that will help support your marriage no matter what befalls it. It's true that there's no way we can really predict what's going to happen in life. We don't really know when we build a building what it will encounter, what will befall it. But we always make sure that we build a foundation to a certain standard to try to ensure that it will stand the test of time. Integrity must be present both personally and as a couple. And integrity to me reflects your high standards and your shared values as a married couple. Critical components. It's like a boundary for me. I think of it as the boundaries of the relationship is determined by our integrity through our high standards and values. It determines how we prioritize and spend our time. It determines how we interact and how we treat each other as a couple. So we need to shore it up and strengthen it so that it will last a lifetime. So for integrity, I'll leave you with this. Build your marriage with integrity from the bottom up, and together you'll be able to withstand life's toughest storms. Well, the next I want to share with you is investment. Investment in emotional, physical, and spiritual intimacy. You know, I really believe in my heart of hearts the thing that we long for the most as human beings is intimacy. It may be scary. It may be difficult to attain to, but deep down in our heart of hearts, that's what we want. I think that's why we subject ourselves to the institution of marriage, because we believe that we can become very, very close and intimate and share something beyond just ourselves. Even though we know it's going to be difficult and it's going to be challenging. What did our vow say? In sickness and health, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor. It's not about just getting everything you want, is it? It's about doing something beyond yourself. And in order for that to happen and to be successful, we're going to have to invest. And that investment will have to be deliberate and intentional. And it's in intimacy. I like to think of marriage like a bank account. Only instead of measuring the currency in dollars and cents, we measure it in emotions and feelings. How we make our spouse feel. How they respond to us and how we respond to them. So every time I make my spouse feel loved and cherished and honored and top priority, I'm making a deposit into the account of our marriage. But likewise, when I disregard, when I do not cherish, when I disrespect, when I roll my eyes, when I sigh heavily, I'm making withdrawals from that same account. So it's really critical to understand that when we invest in our spouse and when we invest in our marriage, we're investing in ourselves, because when we're married, we become one. That's the institution of marriage. We're no longer just an individual, but we've come together and we're a new separate entity as a married couple. And because investment in our marriage and our spouse is so important, we need to prioritize that and make it happen. And it's really neat. I like to say this: if you're gonna have a fulfilling, happy, healthy marriage, you're gonna need to have an abundant account and avoid using credit. Invest heavily in your marriage. Always make more deposits than withdrawals. and you'll never bankrupt your relationship. The third I want to share with you today is for IQ. IQ is intelligence quotients. What is the intelligence quotient that you have in your marriage? It's an ever-learning, ever-growing process. And to increase our marital IQ, you're going to have to continue to learn, to understand, and try to meet your spouse's needs in order to have the marriage that you want to have. When I was young, and before I was married, and I'm still pretty young, but when I was younger, an elderly gentleman told me one time, he said, you know, Walt, if you choose to marry, and you spend your whole life with the same woman, and you make your very, very best effort, you just might get to know her. And you know, in 18 years, I can still tell you that I am learning and continuing to learn things about my wife that I don't know. It's just the process of change accumulated with how intricate we are as human beings. There are things that she does sometimes that just really surprise me still today. And so it's going to be a deliberate and intentional thing to begin to understand and really know the needs of your spouse and to seek to meet them. And that is your best bet for having a truly fulfilling relationship. You know, we have this penchant as human beings to be very self-focused. It's just our nature. We tend to see things only from our own perspective oftentimes, instead of allowing for another viewpoint. And in a relationship like a marriage, it's easy to take one another for granted. And so oftentimes, in the humdrum and the doldrums of life, we let our guard down, we take it for granted, and we start to operate in what I like to call the default mode, which is self. And you know, practically speaking, this comes out so much in communication in marriages. You could spend a lot of time just talking about communication. But I like to express it this way. It's like my wife has this, you know, I always thought that words meant certain things. But I've learned in marriage that that's really not necessarily the case. Oops. So it's really important to understand that when we communicate, we have different styles, and words don't always mean what they appear to. She speaks pink, she hears pink, she sees pink, and for me, it's all blue. And so when she says I have no clothes, I've come to understand that she means she has nothing new to wear. When I say I have no clothes, she knows that it means they're all dirty in a pile. So the truth of the matter is, we said the same exact thing, but we did not communicate in the same exact way. We did not hear it the same way. But as you go down the road of your marriage life, I think it's important to remember, if you will be an ever-learning student of your spouse in your marriage, they will often feel as if they were the lucky one. And that, I think, is the goal, is to really try and make them feel that way. Whether you're married or not, we all long for a meaningful relationship. At times, putting these into practice will be some of the hardest things that you'll ever do. But it does lead us to what we hope for and desire the most, and that is marital bliss. Thank you.